Yo, yo, yo. Hey,
Yo, yo,
Eric.
yo.
What's
What
going
is
on?
up? What is up? So, quick question.
Yeah.
Should Barack Obama's mother have to pay reparations?
Is she white? She's the white one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she should.
Okay. See, this is what I mean. Does it seem like it gets a little ridiculous when you put it in that context? Like,
Not really.
look, you said that he identifies.
You know what I was thinking actually this morning?
What's that?
I was like, Eric just really wants to be able to say the N word, right? I just feel it.
No,
I know you just really want to. And you know what I was
no.
thinking? I was like, all right, you know what? Okay, Eric, this is an option for you.
Uh huh.
So if we're able to get into a time capsule and go back 400 or 500 plus years,
Uh
right?
huh.
And your ancestors endure rape, torture, slavery, everything, right?
Mm hmm.
Get back in that time capsule, right? And I'm
Yeah.
saying like my ancestors inflicting this upon your ancestors, right?
Uh huh.
Get back in that time capsule and we come back, right?
Mm hmm.
Then you get to call me the N word,
Okay.
even with the hard ER, right?
And I
That's
don't. Well,
but
first of
that's
all,
the thing.
first of all, I don't want to do that. But second of all, okay, so we
Exactly.
know that the African slave trade was there were Africans, elite Africans with wealth and power selling. So do they pay reparations? This is what I'm saying. And I don't mean this to be insensitive. I'm just saying, can you really slice and dice I mean, there are people like prominent black Americans who have done ancestry.com and found out they were ancestors of slave owners as well as slaves because of all the. So I just think it's getting dicey.
But where is this energy when it comes to reparations to other ethnicities, other people groups? I'm not even going to go into specifics, but you know what I'm talking about. There's been other forms of reparations to other people groups that have endured similar atrocities, right? Why is it all this energy when it comes to black people? And I want to add one more thing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine like a little white boy, a little white kid, right? Girl,
Mm-hmm.
boy, right? They endure some type of trauma, right? It could be like a slap on the wrist or mommy was mean to me when I was a kid or whatever, right?
Kid
And then
needs to toughen up.
no, 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 just hear me out. Oh, please, there's like millions of people in freaking AA meetings, like like trying to heal from trauma, right? And that's my point. And when people say like tell black people like get over it, it was
No, I
was
didn't say it.
I'm like, you can't even get over, and I said a little white boy because I'm talking to a white man, like not you per se, but like you can't even get over what happened to you like 50, 40 years ago. Like some people are going to their deathbeds still pissed at like mommy,
N-
for being mean,
Yeah,
right?
now they need to get over it. I've never said get over it to
But,
people
but
of
my, but
color.
my point is trauma doesn't necessarily heal in a lifetime, even with like, you know, relatively like I mean, I'm not yeah,
You're
relatively
saying minor trauma.
minor trauma compared to like what slavery or Holocaust, that kind of trauma would inflict,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
As individuals, but also, a group of people as a whole, right?
Hmm.
Not even like minor trauma is necessarily resolved in one lifetime. That's why we have generational trauma. Like my mom used to be like this, my grandpa, that's where I get it from, right? So
Hmm.
imagine with something like as grave as these atrocities, right? It might never really get resolved, right?
But
So like people are just like, oh, get over it. You need reparations. It happened such a long time
no,
ago. I'm like,
I don't
this
think,
can
and
still be a conversation in another 500 years.
nobody should be telling people whose ancestors were slaves. But I mean, the word slave comes from Slava. It used to be white slaves, Greek slaves in Rome. I mean, so this trauma. I mean, it's more recent with African Americans and any African slave in any country. But the thing that's crazy about it is, first of all, my family weren't here. But what's even crazier is when you read stories about slavery in the South, it was for the rich people who owned slaves. The poor people weren't getting, like, the only people benefiting from this were the elite. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. Money and power is corrupt. And
Yeah.
people, you know what I'm saying? So you have a poor white man working, for peanuts next to an even poorer slave who's a slave, and some rich guy is getting rich. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of weird separating who ultimately is responsible. Now, again, I'd rather give African Americans my money than give it to the Ukraine and to Israel. Like, why are we giving them money to blow shit up when we could be taking care? What we need to do. So last night I had Brandon Adams on my other podcast, and he does a lot of. He used the term for one of the charities, food insecurity. There are people in the richest country in the world, the United States of America, who go to bed without food. So I don't care what color, what label, who pays it. We need to be taking care of our people. You can't call and then call yourself a Christian nation and people are starving and we're paying farmers not to grow corn. Come on, it's ridiculous.
You know what you said just reminded me. It was one of in one of Dave Chappelle's Netflix specials. He said something along the lines of, I hate quoting like Dave Chappelle jokes because obviously I'm gonna butcher, but he said something along the lines of, all these like white people, they're like, yeah, pro Trump, yeah, whatever. He's like, he's not like all these like, poor white people that are for the most part, like super hardcore pro Trump. At least like in the beginning, that was sort of what he was like. That was where he was like directing his attention, like rural white people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Dave Chappelle's like, he's not working for you, he's working for me.
He's
Like,
working because I'm rich.
because I'm right.
Yeah.
And so that reminds me, like, what you said about like slaves, and then you have poor white people, and the people that are really benefiting are the elite, right? The rich people, whether they're white, or I'm not gonna say whether they're white or black because they are white. But yeah.
Well, in the case of slavery, yes, but even now, there's a thing called. Look, there's a thing. Look, I mean, P Diddy's in trouble right now, but I mean, when somebody like Jay-Z is worth $800 million, there's privilege that comes with that. Like his children grow up in a way that a white kid in some trailer they don't get. So, it's just so weird. But the thing that's happening to me now as I get older, I'm like, wait. Why do people want so many things? Things now freak me out. I have too many things. Like I don't have the liquidity and the fluidity that I had years ago because I have homes and things. I have property. Like just guitars. What was that?
Go on.
Did you say give it to you?
No. I just acknowledge your riches.
No, I'm not rich, but I'm just weighed down.
Yeah.
Like I just want to be in like a toga and be able to just like roam the earth. Speaking of roaming the earth, some woman a couple of months ago, I was reading about it. She got eaten by a bear, killed by a bear in Yellowstone Park because she decided to quit her job as a teacher and hike around the world, like around the country. And when she was attacked and killed by the bear, her mother said, well, she died doing what she loved. No. She loved hiking. She didn't love getting killed by a bear. That's what I'm saying.
Speaking of Diddy and other news, and the only news I would say right now, I mean, just going back to what we discussed the other day, it's got to be something happening behind the scenes because he's really dominating every news channel.
Mm-hmm.
It's everywhere. So he was denied bail.
Right.
Once again, and
which is crazy. Is crazy.
And he requested, it was like he petitioned for a 50 million bond, which is insane, and that was once again rejected by the judge, which tells me, all right, like, yeah, I get it, he's a flight risk, right? But it's got to be more than that. It's got to be I don't know, I feel like he's already been judged in public, like in public opinion. So at this point, I'm just kind of still getting used to these like YouTube rules or whatever. So I can't say the word, and you can't either moving forward. But he's supposedly on S watch right now in jail.
Right.
I mean, very similar to what we saw with Jeffrey, with Epstein. Right? It was everything came tumbling down, and it was so. I mean, it was just so. The allegations were so grave that it was. I mean, frankly, impossible for him to get out of it, right? And he didn't. And I think that's what's happening to Diddy also. But anyway, he's on S watch, and now you could argue: is it real or is it sort of like a ploy?
Oh,
for
it's a
people to
ploy.
have sympathy for him. But at the same time, imagine having, because at this point he's been extremely wealthy for the majority of his life, because I think he's had money since his early 20s, I would say,
Yep,
right? And
absolutely.
so at this point, that could actually be a legitimate mental health crisis, right? Fearing for his life, right? Because for some people in jail, it's a badge of honor to go after Diddy and, take him out,
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also probably I heard allegedly he's also going through withdrawals, drug withdrawals,
How about
which is
caffeine withdrawals? Because there's no freaking caffeine except
he's not getting any
Saturdays and
coffee.
Sundays.
He's not getting any coffee. So going through withdrawals and going from, a 50 million LA mansion, all this, to, I don't know, you've seen the size of a cell.
Yeah, I,
That,
100%. But
that's got to be a legitimate mental health crisis, I would
yeah,
think.
no, I mean, maybe. I mean, look, I'm sure he doesn't feel great right now. But when you tell me Diddy's on suicide watch, when you tell me Jeffrey Epstein was on suicide watch, and then a security guard goes to take a piss, the cameras go down, and then he dies when he's got a book this big on who was corrupt with him, I just
Mm,
don't believe it. They're going after. Look, Diddy's guilty. I mean, I saw him beat a woman up in a lobby. I don't care. If he has that kind of narcissism and rage that he can get away with that or thinks he can, he's doomed. I believe everything I'm hearing. I also believe he's a narcissist and probably loves his family. And I'm sure his kids don't want to see him kill himself,
right.
right? And you don't look, and you don't know, man. He could get some, he could get some governor or president to pardon him. Like anything can happen. I'm sure he still has some kind of hope. I don't. I think the suicide watch is we need to take this guy out. So let's tell the news 24 hours a day that he's on suicide watch. So when we kill him, so the Clintons and all the other disgusting white, rich, powerful people,
Mm,
they're in jeopardy. Anytime something like this happens, I'm embarrassed to say this, and I think I said it to you once before. I used to have a copy of my father's badge. My father was a federal marshal. He was a speechwriter, so he had all these perks. He was a federal marshal, and he was the commissioner of Bay Constables in my county. So I had a badge, a little copy of my dad's badge. And when I would get pulled over by the police, I would open my wallet in a way that they could see it when I'm pulling out my license. And they'd be
yeah.
like, oh, who's on the force? Who's on the job? And I'd say, oh, my dad is. All right, listen, man, you need to be more careful. Go. And one day I was talking about this with my dad, and we both realized that we were doing exactly what we loathe about powerful people.
Mm,
And I stopped doing it. And I put that, I still have the badge in a case because it was my dad's and I miss him. But years ago, 30 years ago, I stopped doing that because I'm like, I hate these rich, powerful people who think they can go to an island and have sex with underage people and they think they can get away with all these things. And then I was doing like a micro version of it. It's so in our nature to take advantage of these opportunities. Everybody's in trouble if they don't get rid of Diddy. That's what I think.
that's a very good point. It does signal a message, because right now I'm pretty sure there are plenty of abusers, both mental, emotional, and physical abusers, sitting at home watching, um, sitting right next to their wife or girlfriend or whatever who they're currently abusing, watching this, showdown with Diddy. And I think it would set an example. Of course, it's always going to be a little bit uncomfortable seeing a black man go to jail for X, Y, and Z reasons, whatever the system, whatever. But in this case, after having seen the video where
Oh,
he beat Cassie,
mm-hmm.
um, for that crime alone, he does deserve to serve time for that
I
alone,
agree.
and that's been proven that he's done that, right? And imagine if that's true. I think that's actually the reason why people are now more likely to like, I guess, be okay with sending Diddy away, because
Mm-hmm.
after seeing that video, it kind of just puts all the other allegations in a different light, where you're like, all right, now everything that seemed so outrageous before now actually seems believable. I don't know what's going on with my light here. It's just a lot of light on me right now. I don't know.
You look like an angel.
I thought it was the sun, but no, I don't know what's happening.
No, there's
It's
definitely sun hitting you. You look amazing. Don't worry about it.
There's sun hitting me, but it's like getting more and more. I feel like I'm disappearing. It's like this like whole white layer.
No, yeah, no. Actually, there's some. Yeah, if you get closer, I can see
Yeah,
that. But you're good either way. So
yeah,
look. Nobody wants to see their own kind, their own race, their own political party, their own religion go away because we feel on some level it reflects on us.
mm,
My question is, who are they protecting? Because everybody knew for a million years what was going on with Diddy. They knew that Chris Cuomo, the governor of New York, was being, if he was in fact, doing what they say. They have all this information, and suddenly somebody gets scared, or suddenly somebody's not useful to the cause anymore, and they get rid of them. They just start throwing people under the bus.
yeah.
So yeah, Diddy deserves to go to prison most likely, but who else deserves to go to prison with him? Who's white, in politics, and not going to prison? That's so. Even on this elite level, you have the black man suffering because there are 20 white men in his crew, and I don't mean hanging out with him on a day-to-day basis, but going to the white party in the Hamptons
Yeah,
and going to his little, Miami mansion and LA mansion. They're all up to no good.
I agree. So our first topic for today
Other than
is
Diddy.
do you know the comedian Andrew Schulz? Andrew Schulz, have you heard of
Uh-huh.
him?
Yep.
Okay, so he's in hot water. I mean, well, let's see what you think. So he was talking about. There's a clip that I'm going to show you. That's sort of self-explanatory, but essentially he had two very popular YouTubers, Shits and Gigs, I think they're called, on his podcast, his Flagrant podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about how men change once they start dating a black girl, like
Mm-hmm.
their style or whatever. And these two guys, the Shits and Gigs, they I don't think they meant it in like when they start engaging that conversation. I don't think that they were intending to sort of like disparage um black women, but then Andrew Schultz, in true Andrew Schultz fashion, jumped in the conversation and started saying I think pretty harmful things about black women. And I think he was trying to be funny, but there's a lot of backlash. So let's take a look at it
Okay.
and see what you think.
I want to hear it.
All right.
Fear
They set the
because
dick
it's
up.
culture.
Yeah, so you'll see a guy who's had a black girlfriend. All of a sudden, he's got buzz cut, like
Yeah,
clean shape up.
Yeah,
Blows up, bro.
Yeah, I like that.
Blows
I
the
like
fuck up.
that. They shave their hair because they start losing it. Because they're so stressed being around this black girl complaining about shit all the fucking time. That's why they got to shave their
Nah,
hair.
bro. White guys with black girlfriends,
They grow a
set-
beard
they set the
because
dick
there's
up.
more cushion when they get slapped the fuck out of.
That's hilarious.
I think the black girlfriend effect. It might be a protective instinct, bro.
You think?
Protective. Do you guys have you ever had black girlfriends?
Yeah.
Have you ever had white girls?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. What's your favorite?
We love them all.
Yeah.
Oh really?
We love them all.
Yeah.
That means white.
Who
No.
gets
That is what.
Hey, let me get a US translation.
Kendrick fans? Get him!
It with. Her name is. It doesn't.
Okay, so there are a few things going on here. On the one hand, he's Andrew Schultz is feeding into this stereotype that black women are aggressive and mean, and you have to protect yourself from them being their boyfriend. And well, I forgot my second point, but what do you think about that first point?
I mean, in the context, I mean, it just seems like comedy to me. Being a white man, it's hard for me to understand what the response. I just know people who would laugh. I know black men and black women who would just think that's funny, and I know black men and okay. This is what I think. It's hard for me to really answer. I probably would be more careful than that, but
I mean, you're even careful with me.
yeah, but I don't think that again, it's. So, like, I mean, part of my advantage, I think, over Andrew Schulz is I grew up in New York City. Like, I've
Yeah.
spent the majority of my life here. So it's like the diversity isn't just that people are different colors and ethnicities and religions, but you meet people of color who are really subdued and mellow and really aggressive, and white people who are super aggressive, and white men who are very effeminate. So on top of the diversity of culture, you get diversity of personality and style. And that's why racism starts to seem stupid, because you're like, wait a minute, who's cheap? Like, so-and-so is the most cheap. You know what I mean? So there's that. But I was being dropped off at my building by Eddie Flacco, Bobby Cruz, and a guy named Iran, and I don't know what his last name is, but they're all Hispanic. My doorman comes out to open the door for me, and he's Hispanic. I said, Alex, these guys are from the wrong side of the track. Don't ruin my street cred. And two of the guys were laughing hysterically. One guy wasn't. I get to the park the next day. He's like, dude, I need to talk about what you said. I said, fuck you, bro. I said, I'm making fun of me that I'm not cool enough to hang out with you guys, and you're getting sensitive because I said you're from the wrong side of the tracks. And the guy lives upstate in some white neighborhood. I'm just not, and everybody who was in on that was like, Iran, and he goes, all right. And he kind of backed down. He wanted to be offended by what I said, and two people who actually, one of them really is a little bit, like less fortunate than the other two. They were just like, what are you talking about? That's Eric. We're having fun. So I don't know how to gauge this, honestly.
I get it. On the one hand, yes, he is a comedian. And for me, Andrew Schulz, just personally, I don't think he's like funny. I think he has funny moments. Like, there are times where I'm like, oh, what he said was kind of funny. But he's not someone that I'm like, he is funny, right?
Yeah.
Because I realized that watching him, especially like on his podcast and that sort of thing, he practices what I call like mean comedy, and
Yeah.
it's like, it is funny, but it's only funny to a certain degree, and that to me is not necessarily a sign of like true funniness. If like your funny is like just kind of like taking like a jab at someone all the time, that to me is like a bully turned comedian. And I know a lot of those people. I used to date someone who was like that.
Bullied, or
He's a
bullied.
comedian. He's not a comedian. He's a bully, and then
Right.
he turned it into a career.
Right. And
right?
sometimes it's right. And sometimes it's people who were bullied who then turned being a bully into a career. Don Rickles, American comedian Don Rickles. I think he's from Queens, actually. Very, world famous. I mean, huge to his generation, and he's just mean. He says very mean things to people. I'm going to tell you what I think. You just said something, and when I saw Andrew Schulz do the Tom Brady roast, I mean, he had some funny moments, but you know what it is? He's not likable. When I see Dave Chappelle, I want to have dinner with Dave Chappelle. When I was hanging out with Robert Kelly the other night, and I got to hang out with Jim Norton, I have a picture of me with my arm around Jim Norton. Like, as I have my arm around Jim Norton, I'm like, I was totally comfortable hugging him because I like him. Robert Kelly's a likable guy. Bill Burr is snarky, but he still comes across as
But he's
likable.
very likable. But also another thing with Bill Burr is funny. Like,
He's so.
Bill Burr might actually be like the number one comedian.
He's amazing. He's
Like,
amazing.
Like, you can't even compare Andrew Schulz to Bill Burr. They're just on whole.
No, it's not right. But
I blame Joe Rogan for the rise of Andrew Schulz. I don't think
Right.
he would have risen had not, because Joe Rogan all of a sudden started like bringing him on his show and like hyping him up or whatever. And I mean, yeah, maybe it's his buddy. He thinks it's funny, whatever. But I saw like a quick rise in his career after that Joe Rogan stamp.
right.
That's not to say that Andrew Schulz doesn't deserve to have space in the comedy world. He does. He's still funny. He's a comedian, but I do think that he's pushed that like mean comedy a little bit too far. And I remember the second point that I was gonna about what was said. It's about Black women. Not only the whole like you have to protect yourself against Black women, but also the whole like that they're not dateable, right?
Right.
Because of this.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
That was also another thing.
Right. And again, so this is like the thing. I don't know where he grew up. I don't know how he grew up. But when you grow up with a TV version of Black women, and then you go to Van Cortlandt Park and Black wives are with their Black husbands sitting there barbecuing and picnicking while the men we're all playing paddleball, and I know their wife and kids for 4 years, that becomes absurd to a person who's actually in the mix with people of different ethnic. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not bragging like, oh, look at me. I'm so diverse. But I grew up in a city. Now I don't live. I mean, I play at Van Cortlandt Park. This isn't even Manhattan, where everyone in the world. This is under the elevated train trestle. This is, a rougher part of New York City. And you see these women who are like family women who are raising their children with their husbands, and they're married for 30 years. So Andrew Schulz's perception of a black woman just becomes stupid to me. But let me ask you a question. Now he's with Shits and Giggles. What are their names?
Shits and Gigs or something like that?
I would never call myself Shits. I mean, what a fucking dumb name. But they seem really likable. They seem like they're kind of like with those accents and they're funny.
Very likable. Mm-hmm.
So what happens when I'm the snarky white comedian and I'm on with the two lovable black guys and we're like, ga, 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 ga? Do I get carried away because I feel like, hey, I'm with my boys, and like all of a sudden I feel like I have some kind of extra cred to go over the line? Is he reacting to their comfortability with? And
you're very perceptive, because I think another thing that put a battery in Andrew Schulz's back is also his like affiliation with Charlamagne the God, because I think that sort of made him, because Charlamagne the God in the black community, he has a certain status, right?
Yeah,
so it's almost like if you're co-signed by Charlamagne the God, you're okay with us black people. That's kind of, he's one of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's also something that he's maybe using a little bit, unfortunately, he's like kind of pushing the envelope a little bit on that, because it's one thing to be like, I mean, you and I, right? I'm black, you're white, whatever. I mean, we joke around and we talk about race. I mean, I make white jokes, you make black jokes or whatever, right? But there's still like a limit, you know what I mean?
Well, there's got to be respect, and I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna, based on you and my mentor Roberto Sharp, I'm not going to go on somebody's podcast and start shit talking about black people. Oh, well, I know Sarah and Roberto. I can do this. That's
right.
So that's kind of, but again, the likable and non-likable thing. Now, the thing that's interesting is I find Joe Rogan likable. So I'm almost surprised that he gets on with Andrew Schulz the way he does.
I am too, because for me, Joe Rogan, he's a special breed.
He's an incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when I see him interact with people, he feels he feels very genuine, and I'm not surprised by his huge success. He feels like a good person, like he feels like someone that does the right thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
that's why I like Joe Rogan's comedy, because I mean, he says like some like offensive things here and there, whatever, right? But
did you see his latest one? Oh my God.
I did. I think he's really funny, and for the most part, I think that his jokes are like well thought out. Like he takes you somewhere, right? I don't really think that Andrew Schulz takes you somewhere. He's just mean. And here's another thing. Okay, I love Theo Von, and you do too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to pose this question, because
would you smash Joe Rogan?
Oh yeah,
you would.
Wait, not if it would ruin my chances with Theo Von.
Okay. Well, they are buds, but now let's talk about you smashing Joe Rogan. No, and the reason I'm saying this,
I didn't say I would smash Joe Rogan.
You did too. I said, would you smash him? You said
I would. I didn't say I would. Does that make sense? Like he's an attractive person. He's an attractive man. He looks nice. He speaks nice. He's funny. Like he's
his success is
right. But he's a married man, and I respect. I respect all.
Okay, right. You wouldn't smash him because he's married. Okay, got it. So.
Oh my God.
All right, so check it out. So now Sheila thinks one part of his success is that he's masculine, because now again, in the black community there are plenty of masculine men, but for white guys there are just so many effeminate superstar men. They're like, they're very conscious of the way their threads look and all this other stuff. And Sheila, who's more inclined, I mean, I'm a barbarian compared to her male friends. I mean, I think her friends and her friend's husband are like, how did this happen? They just think I'm I'm just like some kind of firecracker, loose cannon. But Joe Rogan being masculine, is that part of it? I mean, the guy's buff. He does martial arts. I mean, is that any of it?
No.
That you,
Do you know Mike Israetel?
no.
All
Who's
right,
Mike?
I'll show you a picture later.
Is he
He's
somebody
just
you would smash?
no. I'm just saying, like, it's just I just brought him up as an example of like he's a bodybuilder, like he's a buff guy. I wouldn't smash him, right? Like, just because you're buff doesn't mean that you're attractive. Just like a skinny guy can be very attractive. Like, I find Theo Von attractive, right? He's not a buff guy, but
Mm-hmm.
I also do find muscular men attractive. So it's like it doesn't really have to do with. I feel like attractiveness is like a package thing, right? It's not just the muscle or the looks or the way you talk or the way. That's why Andrew Schulz to me isn't like attractive at all, because at least if he had the personality, or if he was at least actually really funny, or if he actually like looked really nice with his like freaking mustache that signals, you know what, Hitler mustache.
Fuck, that's, you know what? A Hitler mustache would be like proper evil. It's like a fucking Gomez Adams from Adams Family mustache. Ugh.
It's not cute. And I'm just saying, like, you want to talk about, black women not being dateable and being aggressive and this and that. Like, I'll show you aggressive. I'm just kidding. But no, listen, like, you're not the person to talk about these things. You're not Andrew Schulz. You got a co-sign from Rogan and Charlamagne the God. Charlamagne the God. That's why you are where you are, not because you're acting funny. So like, take a seat. You know
Take
what I
a
mean?
seat. Yeah,
But I did want to ask you this. It was the Theo Von thing before we, he does also sort of like race bait here and there. You know what I mean? He's always kind of asking his black friends, like, oh, like, he just asks a lot of like questions as though, like he doesn't know anything about black people and like whatever. But he does it in a way that's like, he's not like attacking or, being hateful or being mean. Like, he asks questions out of like pure curiosity. Just like the other day when you asked me, like, what does it mean to be ashy? You're just curious. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You're not using that information to then later on go and say that, black people are ashy. You know what I mean? And that's what Andrew Schulz does. It's like he like got in the black community. He learned all these things, and now he thinks he knows it, like stuff about the black community, so that he can like regurgitate back out into the world.
And again, that's just not likable. It's funny you say that about ashy, because I always think of. Oh yeah, I just lost the sync up. Are you done? Do I have a minute?
Yeah, right.
So one of my family members, and not a distant family member, made a comment about Indians invading his neighborhood. And I was like, dude, what? And then I was jogging, and I saw this probably like 25-year-old Indian girl in the neighborhood walking her dog. And she was the most stunning woman in the world. Like, she was unbelievable. And I was just thinking, if my relative saw this woman right now, and he's a hound dog of a man, I'm like, I would get him to shut up. I'd be like, really? You're not going to go on a date with that woman because she's Indian? So as men, like, I think of Alexander the Great and the way he was intrigued with all of these beautiful people from different parts of the world. I don't understand how anybody can be like, oh, black women are ashy. It's like, yeah, and then you just think of the most stunning people or the funniest people. It's like, I don't know how these little things become a topic of conversation when you think of the greatness of so many people. I'm blown away by this.
Yeah,
and I don't like Andrew. I hate Andrew Schulz now, and the fucking hipster mustache. You know what? Like, get over. What are you in freaking Williamsburg, Brooklyn? What do you live on Bedford Avenue?
And here's another thing. Like, what's the saying? Hate begets hate, or whatever, right?
Hate begets hate.
He put so much hate out there. Like, we don't even really talk about people like this. You know what I mean? So he's getting this treatment in return, because like, you want to talk about, and here's another thing that I would like to add. So there's this like idea of like what black people or like black women, right, are like, right? And then when you meet someone who's not like that, and you're like, oh, well, you're not black. And I get that a lot, right? Where people are like, oh, you're not black. You're not
What did
black.
somebody say on one of our comments? I saw a
am
comment.
black. I'm 100% African. How about that, right? But then you're going to be like, oh, but your hair looks like this, or your features, or you talk like this, so you can't be black. No, I am 100% black, period. You know? But it just goes to the whole, like, this is what black is, and, we're going to lump everyone together, and that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, some of the sweetest, like, most, like, smartest, submissive, whatever guys like these days. Women that I've met have been both black or white, whatever. It hasn't like boiled down to race. That's what I'm saying. You know.
Mm-hmm. Well, can you imagine? Can you just imagine that somebody would be like, well, Eric is white, and therefore this is his personality. This is the way he dates. This is what he wears. That is like insane. But yeah, so Andrew Schulz is kind of doing it back. Look, do you hear about the hipster who burnt his mouth eating pizza?
No.
He bit into it before it was cool. Anyway, it's just like that somebody needs to rip that mustache off his. I
See,
wonder
you
if
should be on Joe Rogan, not freaking Andrew Schulz.
what was that?
I said, see, you should be on Joe Rogan, not Andrew Schulz.
You know, so Robert Kelly, one of my favorite
Original joke.
one of my favorite text messages
Your
is
original joke?
was that?
Was that your original
No,
joke?
no, that's a street joke. But I have good ones. I've made up some hipster jokes, but Robert Kelly, our kids do jujitsu together. One day I text messaged him and said, "Hey man, what's up?" He's like, "Dude, I got to call you later. I'm about to go on Rogan." I'm like, "What?" It's just crazy. Going on Rogan is like a big deal. You know.
Yeah.
It's the guy's a kingmaker, really. But with Andrew Schulz, look, again, all the comedians, I literally have a picture of me hugging, like with my arm around Jim Norton the other night.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hang out with Jim Norton. I want to hang out with Dave Chappelle. And I don't even want him to be funny. I just want to pick the man's brain, And yeah, it just Andrew Schulz just doesn't give me. As a matter of fact, and he laughs at his own jokes a lot, which is okay sometimes.
Yeah.
But he's signaling where the punchline is. It's like, bro, if you're that funny, we don't need you to tell us where to laugh.
And I can even tell that people find him annoying. Even his friends, I can tell they like find him annoying. But it's almost like, wait, because he got the Joe Rogan stamp of approval, like now we're all nice to him, or I don't know, but like I can tell. I can really, if you watch like him interview people, like people laugh along with him and everything, but he's not likable. He's not likable.
I didn't like him. The first time I really watched him do comedy was at the Tom Brady roast, and I was not super impressed. I mean, I thought he was funny, but obnoxious for sure.
Mm-hmm. I did think he had like some funny moments in his special. He put out a special, I think, on YouTube a few years ago. Like on his own. And I think it had like funny moments. Listen, I'll give credit where credit is due. I'm not saying he's never funny. He has funny moments, but for the most part, it's mean humor. And I think, he's crossed the line now. And now he's also like, doubling down. He's not apologizing after, causing all this outrage, which is also to me adds to his unlikability, because it's one thing to stand your ground when it's like, listen, I stand by what I did or said. But in this case, what you're standing by, stereotyping and hurting a bunch of Black women and being, I don't know, because it wasn't even funny. It wasn't even like real humor. You know what I mean? It was just really like mean. Yeah,
I don't know. I wonder what Charlamagne the God, who annoys me and I love, and he annoys me. He's again, I reserve the right to dislike Charlamagne the God, even though he's Black. I'm not a signaler. Like sometimes he just his politics. He's got his head up his backside sometimes, but super smart, super entertaining. And I wonder what he thinks of what was said. But then you got to be careful with that too, because there was a clip of Joe Rogan using the N-word once, and the context, it was like a thing, and the clip was isolated and was put out, and it was embarrassing, I'm sure, for Joe Rogan. But then The Rock puts out a statement like, I'm disappointed in Joe Rogan, look at me. And then I see a picture of him telling jokes going, oh, ching chong bing bong, and I'm like, okay, my children are half Asian. Why do you get to do that, you racist? Like, in other words, if you know you're a racist or tell racist style jokes, The Rock, you need to shut before you throw Joe Rogan under the bus. And you can say it's an easier target and it's not as sensitive, whatever. But if you're doing it yourself, don't throw stones. It's just the whole thing is chaos. But I think Bill Burr's wife is African American, but I think likable people can get away with more. I think we all want. I think a lot of people just find Andrew Schulz unlikable, so now they're like, yeah, pounce, pounce,
Well, here's
pounce.
also the difference between Bill Burr joking about black people and Andrew Schulz, right? Bill Burr is actually like the way he jokes about black people, he's the reaction that we have when we watch his hear his jokes is like, yeah, he's right. Yeah. We totally do that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He's able to elicit that response, and that makes us feel like, all right, he's kind of one of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Schultz is not doing that. Like, yeah, we're kind of, yeah, we are like that. It's like,
You're like, shut the fuck up.
like he says offensive things, and then you're like, these two guys, they didn't know, like they laughed and everything, but then after they actually went and said that they were kind of in fight or flight mode because they were like on this huge popular podcast with Andrew Schulz, and Andrew Schulz is really popular, and they didn't really know how to react when he was saying all those things. Like, maybe they didn't want to be like Debbie Downers and be like, oh, hold on,
Yeah.
but weren't really comfortable with what he was saying, and that's not what Bill Burr does. That's why
Bill
stellar.
Burr's.
Yeah.
Well, Bill Burr also throws white people under the bus as he's doing it, which is part of the. Do you know the comedian Lisa Lampanelli?
Oh, I love her. Why did she stop?
I don't know.
So good.
She's so funny, but now she apparently she's either married to, or at one point was in a long-term relationship with a black man, and she was telling these jokes, and they were funny, right?
Yeah.
But she wasn't the problem. And most of the people in the audience weren't the problem. The problem was, I remember a camera scanning, and these two kind of like jacked up redneck looking dudes with baseball caps and like the steroid vein through the middle of their head, were like, oh, and like high-fiving each other. And you could see that they were just missing you know what I mean? Like, in other words, she's being funny, and she has this black husband, and black people are laughing and white people are laughing, and then there are these two guys who look like, yeah, she's so funny, let's like go burn a cross on some black guy's lawn. Like, some people just take shit the wrong way. Like, some people aren't mature enough to handle the beauty of what Bill Burr does.
Yeah.
And that's like a real thing. And by the way, I had a guy just start crap talking, Spanish guy, just start talking about Chinese people, like really mean things. And I had my paddle in my hand. I said, dude, if you say another word, I'm going to crack you in the face. I literally was like that, because what he's saying is that my son and my daughter are targets to him. So it's when I see that level, and then all of a sudden you just say, how funny is this? Now you got me all liberal.
That's a very good point. And that also speaks to the fact that Bill Burr, yes, he does have more license to say certain things because his wife is black.
And his children.
And his children, right? And that goes to what you just said, that you're going to feel a different type of defensiveness now that you're also, when you have children that are biracial or, whatever. So it's going to hit different. And Andrew Schulz, he doesn't really have, other than being friends with, a few black people, it's like you haven't really proven to care about the community at all, the black community whatsoever. So no, you don't have license to say these things. I do want to.
And we're gonna have to wrap up because I have to fly to Tampa.
Oh, okay, so we'll just leave the next topic because do we have 10 minutes or do you want to leave?
I just want to.
We can save it for.
Let me see. I'm trying to. It's so funny how pathetic I am when it comes to time and flying. I'm going to admit something to you. You admit some funny stuff about the guy in the gym. I'm going to tell you something really pathetic about me. You ready?
Okay.
I flew for years with a road manager and people handing me tickets and people grabbing my bags and my guitars and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of transitioned right from that lifestyle when I started touring less. Sheila is like super organized. And now when I travel by myself, I literally was walking through JFK on my way to England one time. And this woman said, sir, are you lost? Can I help you? I'm like, yeah, can you help? Like, I just wander around the airport, so I don't even know what time I have to leave. But I just heard that I have to leave at 9:15, which means we have to wrap up in like 3 or 4 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I think we should leave it until next time. Because
What is the topic, though?
Well, it's Beyonce getting snubbed at the Country Music Awards. And I just want to talk about that because I know you're going to have a lot to say about that. It's a music thing. And, she ventured into country. Does she deserve to, should she be acknowledged in that lane when so many other people are, coming in from other genres into, I guess you could say, Black genres and getting awarded and celebrated. And, and Dolly Parton had some commentary on that also, and I was going to show you some clips or whatever. So it is a topic.
Yeah, totally. We should pick that up Monday for sure.
Okay.
And the other thing, but like, is the record good? I haven't heard it.
I liked it.
Okay.
I liked it. There's some really some songs that I really loved actually. And she charted. I think she had a number one album, the number one country album when it came out. But that also speaks to the fact that she's Beyonce. Whatever she puts out is gonna be number one, whether no matter what genre it is.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll talk about that because it is it's a real topic to talk about. So. Yeah, I guess we're ending the episode number 3 of the Popstars Anonymous show.
Mhm.
We'll catch you guys next time.
By the way, before we go, I just think at some point we need to invite our viewers on camera and have them pronounce anonymity.
Anonymity.
All right, let's get going. I'll see you.
Sounds good. Bye. All right.
Bye.
Dance.